Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News for Monday, March 25th. We had a good weekend. We had a very, very good weekend, and it looks to be shaping up to be an even better week thus far. I've got several exciting stories to tell you all today, but first of all, I wanted to start off with this piece by Christopher Buskirk at the Spectator USA. This is an examination of Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes truly is one of the heroes of the Spygate story. He went out on a limb and took evidence to President Trump showing him exactly what had been done to him when no one else would. He stood up against people in his own party, people on the other side of the aisle. He risked life, limb, his career, his legacy. He knew exactly what the right thing to do was. Devin Nunes, hero of the Republic. You can't put it any plainer. Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller concluded his investigation by exonerating President Trump of collusion with Russian forces during the 2016 election. Investigating that supposed collusion is the reason he was appointed, and his final report declared that he and his team could find no evidence to support the allegation. But for more than 2 years, the nation has been torn apart by the claims that made by Democrats and their operatives in the media. They were sure that President Trump would be forced from office in disgrace. The conspiracists seethed with fundamentalist conviction, confident that Robert Mueller would lead them to the promised land. Nonetheless, many are sticking to their story. There may be no evidence, but they just know it in their bones. What the rest of us know is that we were duped, lied to, and fed garbage. And we should never forget the people who did it. They should not be trusted as journalists, pundits, or polls. But there will be plenty of time for naming the villains. God knows it's a long list. Right now, I'd rather do something we don't do enough. I'd like to take a moment to honor one of the heroes. And as is usual, that list is much shorter. At the top of it is Devin Nunes, the congressman representing the rural Central Valley of California, a farming community where he grew up a dairyman. Rep. Nunes was the chairman of the House Permanent Special Committee on Intelligence until January of this year. In that capacity, he was the point man in the House looking into claims that Donald Trump colluded with Russian agents to somehow rig the 2016 election. Nunes knew all along that the claims were bogus, and he stood up for the truth in the face of withering attacks from Democrats, from the media, which took daily vicious shots at his character and integrity, and from skeptics and unsupportive leaders in his own party. Recall that then-Speaker Paul Ryan forced Nunes to temporarily remove himself from the investigation at the insistence of Democrats like Representative Adam Schiff. Schiff, you should know, is so attached to the Russia hoax that he is still claiming that he knows the collusion was real. Sure, Adam, so was the UFO that stopped you outside of Bakersfield. Were it not for Representative Nunes, we would not have known that Susan Rice, Obama's national security advisor, spied on members of the Trump campaign before the election and then unmasked their names with the likely knowledge that they would be leaked, which they were. We would not have details about the plot in the FBI and the DOJ to use the phony dossier paid for by the Clinton campaign, created by Democratic Party-aligned opposition research firm Fusion GPS, and circulated by an associate of Republican Senator John McCain. We would not know about Page and Strzok. We would not know about the meeting that occurred in the FBI in which they conspired against President Trump and rested sure that at least they had the dossier as an insurance policy. And we would not know about the flagrant abuse of the FISA courts. The FBI and DOJ lied to the FISA court 3 separate times in order to illegally obtain warrants to spy on Trump associates. Who signed those fraudulent documents? Andrew McCabe, James Comey, former Assistant Attorney General Sally Yates, and current Assistant Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. Rosenstein is currently disgraced, and McCabe is under criminal investigation. And what did Nunes get for this? Well, in the last election, he got nearly $10 million of negative ads dumped on him. In his rural district, $10 million of negative ads means that television, radio, print, and mail were saturated. The Democrats could not buy any more airtime to smear his good name. He was also the subject of innumerable hit pieces on television and in print. Even his local newspaper, owned by McClatchy Newspapers, ran story after story attacking him. He was also on the receiving end of a mostly false, poorly sourced hit piece in Bill Kristol's now defunct magazine, The Weekly Standard. Not to mention the attacks made on him from star writers at National Review, such as David French, who joined the liberal mob writing a column calling for Nunes to step down from his chairmanship and claiming that it was he, not the Russian hoaxers, who had undermined public faith. That was countered by some brave writing, but the overwhelming tide of media reporting and opinionating was strongly against him. Nunes was, in many ways, the one man standing against the tide. In If, Rudyard Kipling famously wrote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, he says that if you can do all these things and more, that you will be worthy to call yourself a man." That's gone out of style these days. Devin Nunes is just the sort of man Kipling was describing. So when you hear stories about people who stood up for the truth in the face of a braying mob, know that it's not just something that happens in fiction or in long-ago history. Remember that Devin Nunes stood in the breach and that he deserves the praise of a grateful nation. We would not last long without men like him who are willing to risk, as the signers of the Declaration of Independence said, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Thank God this country still produces such men. Thank God for our farmers, for their ability to see the plain truth that eludes sophisticates. And thank God for Devin Nunes, patriot, hero, and defender of the Republic. Devin Nunes truly did an amazing job throughout all this. And now, as we're reaching the end of everything that's taken place, the finalization of the Mueller report, and the beginning of the investigations against the other side, Devin Nunes will continue to be proven right, and he will truly see his name vindicated in the public arena. Ha ha! Democrat Nadler, heckled. "You guys are a bunch of losers," as he gives press conference. This was beautiful. I didn't get this yesterday until after I had produced my video, so I've been waiting all day to put this out. It was a rough day for the Democratic Party. Attorney General Bill Barr ended their attempt to overthrow the 2016 election victor and concluded candidate Trump did not collude with Russia. New York Democrat and House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler took it especially hard. The top Democrat did not believe the news today. Nadler promised to call in Attorney General Bill Barr for testimony. During his press conference, Nadler was shook when a heckler screamed, "You guys are a bunch of losers." Let's take a listen.
Well, the president could try to exercise executive privilege, but it won't be successful. Executive privilege must be asserted by the president personally, and as the Nixon case in front of the Supreme Court, which was decided 9-0.
I love the way Jerry Nadler gave that sideways glance and clicked his tongue. Oh, congratulations to the guy that got that out on camera. That was pretty funny. Now, I know I've been calling for unity, but unfortunately, I don't think that Jerry Nadler is ready for unity at this point. I think that he needs to realize exactly what he's done. Now, here's the thing. I think Jerry Nadler knows exactly what he's done. I think he knows exactly that President Trump has done nothing wrong and that the conclusions of the report are true. But the fact is, he will never support President Trump. He will never get behind his administration. He will always be looking to obstruct anything that our president does. Lindsey Graham gave a press conference today, and he had some interesting things to say during that conference from my friend Methods. When it comes to the FISA warrant, the Clinton campaign, the counterintelligence investigation, it's pretty much been swept under the rug. Those days are over. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Lindsey had to say.
As to the Clinton email disposition, why did Comey do what he did? Why did he take over the investigation in July, make a statement that she did a lot of bad things but not quite a crime? That did affect this election. And if the shoe were on the other foot, Republicans would have been pretty mad about that. What was the conflict that made Loretta Lynch so unable to preside over the Clinton email investigation? Was it just a tarmac meeting, or was it more? I believe there was more there, and I intend to get to there. How could in October, right before the election, we find out that emails on the Clinton server wind up in the hands of Anthony Weiner, and just within 48 hours, everybody's good to go? This is bizarre at best, troubling to its core from my point of view. So Mr. Mueller has been given a chance to do his job. 2 years, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 people interviewed, 230 orders for communication records, 13 requests to foreign governments for evidence, $25 million or more. That is what happened to the Trump campaign. And I've been okay with that scrutiny from day one. When it comes to the FISA warrant, the Clinton campaign, the counterintelligence investigation, it's pretty much been swept under the rug, except by a few Republicans in the House. Those days are over.
Lindsey Graham said something interesting there that was part of the report from yesterday. The fact that there were 19 lawyers working on this investigation with the special counsel. That brings to mind an interesting proof that my friend Sharp Edge had published yesterday. Back on the 18th of January, our favorite Anon asked us what 19 people are currently meeting in a safe room heavily guarded. Why did everyone leave their phones and all other electronic devices in room 239? Well, it shows that, once again, our benefactor, the individual or individuals who has been speaking to us, had inside information. They knew how many people were working there, and they knew that in order for them to be meeting, they had to leave their electronic devices in a safeguarded room. Now, Lindsey Graham has called for a second special counsel. I heard a lot of people on Twitter today saying that a second special counsel isn't necessary because we've already got Huber, we've got perhaps Durham, we've got their entire teams that have been working all this time. Now, what we know about that investigation is that they're working on the Clinton Foundation investigation, and they very well may be working on the FISA abuse investigation as well. But the fact remains that we allowed them to have the special counsel to investigate President Trump in order to exonerate him. Now, in order for the other side to be able to sit right with what's going to happen with regards to this investigation that took place illegally, I think that we're going to need a special counsel, another special counsel. And I think that it's also very possible that all that other information that's been gathered in the meantime could be used as a clearinghouse to bring it all out. Now, let's take a look at this article about Lindsey Graham and his press conference. Now, Senate Judiciary Chair Lindsey Graham has called for a new special counsel to investigate the FISA abuses in Russiagate. Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham called for a new special counsel to investigate Russiagate during a press conference on Monday. Senator Graham gave a presser on Monday to answer questions about Mueller's report and to talk about Attorney General Bill Barr's next steps to release portions of that report. Graham is scheduled to meet with AG Barr right after that press conference. What I want to do is see if he'll appoint a special counsel, Graham said in a response to a reporter asking about his upcoming meeting with Barr. I'd like to find somebody like a Mr. Mueller who can look into what happened with the FISA warrant, that what happened with the counterintelligence investigation. By any reasonable standard, Mr. Mueller thoroughly investigated the Trump campaign. You cannot say that about the other side of the story, and what I hope Mr. Barr will do is understand for the country's sake, appoint somebody outside the current to look into these allegations. And as Benny Johnson says, woke Lindsey Graham drops the hammer, calls for new special counsel to investigate. FBI, DOJ, Hillary Clinton, Andrew McCabe, James Comey, Fusion GPS, James Clapper, John Brennan, fake Trump dossier, FISA warrant process, anyone who wanted to spy on the Trump campaign. Lindsey Graham has been very clear that he will be investigating FISA abuses and the attempted coup by Obama's FBI and DOJ. Graham sent a letter to Attorney General Bill Barr last Friday requesting documents related to discussions between FBI and DOJ top brass about removing President Trump via the 25th Amendment. The evidence is overwhelming now that the FBI knew prior to obtaining a FISA warrant and 3 subsequent renewals on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page that the Russia dossier was biased and funded by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. So now, knowing all this, knowing that, again, we allowed for these investigations to take place so that we could have the appearance of impartiality, to have the vindication and the exoneration coming from an outside source, it's necessary for us to do the same for the other side, except we know that there will be no exoneration. This is not a made-up witch hunt investigation this time. We have everything. We have all of the evidence, and it's necessary for us to bring it out in court. Discovery. Remember, discovery. Discovery is how you bring evidence to light. Speaking of bringing evidence to light, looks like Michael Avenatti has gotten himself into a bit of a pickle. Avenatti has been arrested in New York on federal extortion charges, prosecutors say. No longer does the other side get to do whatever they want. The Trump curse strikes again. Michael Avenatti was arrested and is being charged with wire and bank fraud, federal prosecutors said Monday. Avenatti was arrested in New York on federal extortion charges. Nicholas Biazzi, with the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, told The Hollywood Reporter. CNBC reported that celebrity lawyer Michael Avenatti has been arrested on charges related to an alleged $20 million extortion of the athletic apparel company Nike, federal prosecutors said Monday. A press conference is scheduled to discuss the charges against Avenatti in Los Angeles on Monday afternoon. Avenatti is due to be presented in federal court on Monday. The charges were revealed less than an hour after Avenatti announced a press conference to discuss purported claims against Nike. An FBI agent said in the complaint that the lawyer had threatened to hold a press conference on the eve of Nike's quarterly earnings call to announce allegations of misconduct by employees of Nike. Now, Michael Avenatti put this tweet out at 12:16 p.m. today, saying that tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be holding a press conference to disclose a major high school college basketball scandal perpetrated by Nike that we have uncovered. This criminal conduct reaches the highest levels of Nike and involves some of the biggest names in college basketball. Well, a criminal complaint against Avenatti says he devised a scheme to extort a company by means of an interstate communication by threatening to damage the company's reputation if the company did not agree to make multi-million-dollar payments to Avenatti and a co-conspirator, and further agreed to pay an additional $1.5 million to a client of Avenatti's. The complaint said last Wednesday Avenatti and a cooperating witness spoke by phone with lawyers for Nike, during which Avenatti stated, with respect to his demands for payment of millions of dollars, that if those demands were not met, I'll go take $10 billion off your client's market cap. I'm not effing around. Michael Avenatti, dubbed the creepy PORN lawyer for representing PORN star Stormy Daniels, has been in a downward spiral professionally and financially in the last several months. Avenatti is no longer representing Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels, but he left her with a hefty $293,052 judgment. This is a breaking story, and we will be following up. In response to Michael Avenatti's tweet right here, the Southern District of New York has announced their own press conference, which was held at 2:30 p.m. today to announce these charges against Avenatti for attempting to extract the $20 million from Nike.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Berman, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today, we announce criminal extortion charges against Michael Avenatti. The charges are based on Avenatti's scheme to extract more than $20 million in payments from a public company by threatening to use his ability to garner publicity to inflict financial and reputational harm on the company. Avenatti's conduct had nothing to do with zealous advocacy for a client or any other kind of legitimate legal work. Instead, Avenatti used illegal and extortionate threats for the purpose of obtaining millions of dollars in payments for himself. Avenatti repeatedly pressured the company to agree to pay or risk having Avenatti hold a press conference that he claimed would dramatically drive down the stock price of the company and its market value. As Avenatti threatened in one recorded meeting, if the company did not meet his demands, the company might die, but if not, it was, quote, going to be inflicted with cut after cut after cut after cut. As alleged, the entire scheme played out in less than a week. Avenatti first met with representatives of the company last Tuesday, March 19, in Manhattan. At that meeting, Avenatti said he represented a client who coached an amateur high school basketball team sponsored by the company, which is Nike. The team had recently lost that contract worth $72,000 a year, and Avenatti claimed the coach had information about potential misconduct by employees at Nike. The allegations of misconduct were similar in kind to those that formed the core of a prior criminal prosecution brought by our office, that payments were made to families of high school basketball players. In that meeting, and in subsequent conversations that were recorded as part of our investigation, Avenatti threatened to hold a press conference at which he would make these allegations public if the company did not agree to his financial demands. Avenatti promised to forego the press conference and allow the company to avoid financial harm if the company agreed to pay his client $1.5 million and for Avenatti himself to retain Avenatti and another co-conspirator to conduct a multi-million-dollar internal investigation, an internal investigation that the company did not request. Avenatti made clear that he was approaching the company at a time intended to maximize the potential financial damage of such a press conference, namely on the eve of the annual NCAA tournament and the company's quarterly earnings call. As Avenatti threatened on one call recorded during the investigation, if the company did not accede to his financial demands, and in his words, quote, "I'll go take $10 billion off your client's market cap." In a recorded meeting the next day with representatives of the company, Avenatti made clear that he expected to be paid up to $25 million, with $12 million to be paid up front and deemed earned when paid. And when asked by a lawyer for the company why the company would agree to such an arrangement, Avenatti responded in substance that he had the company in a very vulnerable position where he could wipe out $5 to $6 billion of its market capital. When the company's lawyers resisted paying Avenatti to conduct an internal investigation, Avenatti told the company it could skip paying for an internal investigation if instead it simply paid him $22.5 million. Then Avenatti said he would, quote, "ride off into the sunset." Pressure and a sense of urgency were used in delivering these threats. As you can see from the timeline, this all happened in a period of 3 days. On day one, March 19th, a Tuesday, this was the first meeting between Avenatti, representatives from Nike, and the co-conspirator. At this meeting, Avenatti, for the first time, made his extortionate demands and threats. Following that meeting, representatives from Nike called prosecutors at my office and informed our office of the extortionate demands and threats made by Avenatti. Going forward, all interactions between Nike representatives and Avenatti were recorded and overseen by the FBI and my office. On day two, Wednesday, March 20th, there was a recorded phone call with Avenatti, the co-conspirator, and representatives from Nike, where Avenatti again made his threats and demands. And on day 3, there was a meeting which was recorded on Thursday, March 21st, last Thursday, in which Avenatti repeated his demands and threats. And as you can see, he graphically described his hold on the company. At the end of this meeting on Thursday, they agreed that there would be one final meeting the coming Monday, which is today. And at that meeting, Nike would either accede to Avenatti's demands or suffer the consequences. After that meeting, about 2 hours after that meeting, Avenatti decided to turn up the heat on Nike. He issued a tweet, and it said, "Something tells me that we have not reached the end of this scandal." And by scandal, he's talking about the college basketball corruption prosecutions brought by the Southern District of New York. The scandal, it's likely far, far broader than imagined. So while this tweet went out to the public, it was intended and designed for an audience of one. This was Michael Avenatti's shot across Nike's bow. Through the alleged course of conduct, Avenatti used legal terms like claims and settlements and retainers, but these were mere devices to provide cover for Avenatti's extortionate demands for a massive payday for himself. By engaging in the conduct alleged in the complaint, Avenatti was not acting as an attorney. A suit and tie doesn't mask the fact that, at its core, this was an old-fashioned shakedown.
Michael Avenatti has clearly committed the crime of extortion. You can see from this timeline, this is an open and shut case. This is not politically motivated. Michael Avenatti did this to himself. This is so different from what just happened to our president. The difference is stark in comparison. There's no way that Michael Avenatti is going to get out of this one. He's going to see the inside of a prison cell, and perhaps he'll share that with Jussie Smollett. So as I was chopping up this video, it was announced that celebrity attorney Mark Geragos has been fired by CNN after he was named as the co-conspirator in the Avenatti criminal complaint. It just keeps getting better. CNN cut ties with celebrity attorney Mark Geragos on Monday after he was named as a co-conspirator in Michael Avenatti's criminal complaint. Mark Geragos regularly appeared on CNN as a legal analyst. However, a spokesperson for the network confirmed, as of Monday, Geragos is no longer a contributor. Mark Geragos is known for legally representing former Congressman Gary Condit, SJW Colin Kaepernick, hate hoaxer Jussie Smollett, and murderer Scott Peterson, to name a few. Now, it is unclear at this time whether Geragos has been charged by the feds or is cooperating with investigators. When I said maybe he'll be sharing a jail cell with Jussie Smollett, maybe all three of them will be sharing a jail cell together. But wait, there's more. As alluded to, Michael Avenatti has been hit with charges in Los Angeles, separate federal charges of wire and bank fraud. Michael Avenatti was arrested in New York on federal extortion charges. But that's not all. Federal prosecutors in Los Angeles announced separate charges of wire fraud and bank fraud against Michael Avenatti at 2 p.m., just before the press conference that took place in the Southern District of New York. Attorney Michael Avenatti was arrested Monday, pursuant to a criminal complaint alleging he embezzled a client's money in order to pay his own expenses and debts, as well as those of his coffee business and law firm, and also defrauded a bank by using phony tax returns to obtain millions of dollars in loans. Avenatti, 48, of Century City, was arrested today pursuant to a 2-count felony complaint charging him with wire fraud and bank fraud. He also was arrested pursuant to a separate federal case in New York. According to an affidavit filed with the criminal complaint in this case, Avenatti negotiated a settlement which called for $1.6 million in settlement money to be paid on January 10, 2018, but then gave the client a bogus settlement agreement with a false payment date of March 10, 2018. The affidavit states that Avenatti misappropriated his client's settlement money and used it to pay expenses for his coffee business, Global Baristas US LLC, which operated Tully's coffee stores in California and Washington state, as well as for his own expenses. When the fake March 2018 deadline passed and the client asked where his money was, Avenatti continued to conceal that the payment had already been received, court documents said. Avenatti also allegedly defrauded a bank in Mississippi by submitting to the lender false tax returns in order to obtain 3 loans totaling $4.1 million for his law firm and coffee business in 2014. According to the affidavit, Avenatti obtained the loans by submitting fabricated individual income tax returns, Forms 1040 for 2011, 2012, and 2013, reporting substantial income even though he had never filed any such returns with the Internal Revenue Service. The phony returns stated that he earned $4.5 million in adjusted gross income in 2011, $5.4 million in 2012, $4 million in 2013, according to the affidavit. Avenatti also claimed he paid $1.6 million in estimated tax payments to the IRS in 2012 and paid $1.25 million in 2013. In reality, Avenatti never filed personal income tax returns for 2011, 2012, and 2013, and did not make any estimated tax payments in 2012 and 2013. Instead of the millions of dollars he claimed to have paid in taxes, Avenatti still owed the IRS $850,000 in unpaid personal income tax plus interest and penalties for the years 2009 and 2010, court papers have stated. The affidavit also alleges that as part of his loan applications, Avenatti also submitted a fictitious partnership tax return for the law firm. Michael Avenatti, dubbed the creepy PORN lawyer for representing PORN star Stormy Daniels, has been in a downward spiral professionally and financially in the last several months. Avenatti is no longer representing Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels, and he left her with a hefty $293,000 judgment. I think that saying that Michael Avenatti has been on a downward spiral personally and financially is a bit of an understatement. Michael Avenatti has hit rock bottom, and there isn't much farther he can go. Now, again from my friend Methods, Trump definitely went there and talked about treason. Let's take a listen to what President Trump had to say.
So did this turn out to not be a witch hunt after all? You think Robert Mueller did a...
It's lasted a long time. We're glad it's over. It's 100% the way it should have been. I wish it could have gone a lot sooner, a lot quicker. There are a lot of people out there that have done some very, very evil things, very bad things, I would say treasonous things against our country.
There have been people on the other side who have done some very bad things, treasonous things. These things that President Trump alludes to are going to be brought to light. Our president does not say things off the cuff that do not have weight and veracity behind them. He has not claimed anything that has not come to pass. President Trump is putting it out there that we are going to see people tried and convicted for treason. And it's going to happen very soon with the speed that these things appear to be happening at this point. I can only imagine how many people that we know of will be tried for treason and brought before the courts in an equal and just application of the law. Now that reminds me of a post from our favorite Anon just earlier today. Blind justice under the law will return to our republic. There is a reason why a sword is held. This is happening, folks, and anybody who tries to tell you otherwise is blind, deaf, or dumb at this point. Speaking of equal application of justice under the law, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has just called on Adam Schiff to step down from the House Intelligence Committee. And Kellyanne Conway has called on liberal hack Adam Schiff to resign immediately, not just step down from his post on the committee. White House counselor Kellyanne Conway went on Fox and Friends on Monday to gloat following the exoneration of President Donald Trump, his campaign, and family in the corrupt Mueller witch hunt. During the conversation, Kellyanne went off on liberal hack Adam Schiff, who insisted he had proof of Trump collusion with Russia. Schiff was lying and continued to spread the lie for 2 years. Kellyanne Conway called on Schiff to resign immediately. Right on. Let's take a listen to what Kellyanne had to say on Fox and Friends this morning.
Talk about an oxymoron. This man heads the Intelligence Committee in the House. He said, quote, he believed that the scandal was of a size and a scope probably bigger than Watergate and that there's plenty of evidence of collusion. He ought to resign today. He's been on every TV show 50 times a day for practically the last 2 years, promising Americans that this president would either be impeached or indicted.
But Kellyanne, he's a politician. That's what politicians do.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. But talk about collusion. They have been aided and abetted. That's right. That's what politicians do. And my tweet last night saying they'll never get you, President Trump, because they don't get you. The get you part is how he got elected. The non-politician disruptor. Americans didn't want business as usual. But think of all the time and money that has been wasted, not just on this investigation, which is the second most expensive investigation by day since the Special Counsel was created 40 years ago. But think about all the people who are suffering from drug addiction, who couldn't get the media to cover on the greatest scourge of our times.
Now, Kellyanne brought up an interesting concept, and that has been spoken about recently in the last couple days. And in the last several years. And that's Watergate. The fact that what's happened is worse than Watergate. Now, that has almost universally been applied against our president, President Trump. However, now you're starting to see it in the popular lexicon. But it's not about President Trump. It's about the scandal that was hoisted upon our nation and the office of the president. And that is the Russia collusion investigation. The means in which it happened were totally false and illegal. And I would suggest that that in itself is the Watergate of our times. That is what is worse than Watergate. I am watching with eager anticipation to see what happens, maybe even later today, but certainly in the next several days. I think that we're going to see the dominoes continue to fall, and we are going to see justice truly handed down equally in this great nation of ours once again. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, I am Red Pill 78, the corruption detector, and this has been your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.